Welcome to a bonus episode of the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. On bonus episodes, I review books that can impact your health, especially as someone with an autoimmune disease. For any book that I give positive recommendations for, I will have an affiliate link down in the show notes. But of course, you can always get the book at your local bookstore or at the library. If you have a book that you would like me to review for the Health with Hashimoto's podcast, let me know. I love to read, I love to learn, and I love checking out new books. So let me know what book I should review next. Let's dive into today's bonus episode content. The Connection Cure by Julia Hotz, or Hotz, H-O-T-Z is her last name. I love this book. I'm going to give it 5 stars. I'll let you know that right now. Go out and buy it and read it. It is so good. The subtitle of this book is The Prescriptive Power of Movement, Nature, Art, Service, and Belonging. This is a book about things that help us get well that are not medications. I loved it. It is so affirming of there are other aspects of life than just medicine. It's so good. Okay, so let me read you the back of the book or the description. It says, in this combination of diligent science reporting, okay, I'm going to interject here. There is research in this book. She does not tell you just stories. This is real information. These are real things. It's not just woo. It's real. I love that. Okay, back to the description. In this combination of diligent science reporting, moving patient success stories, and surprising self-discovery, journalist Julia Hotz helps us discover lasting and life-changing medicine in our own communities. Traditionally, when we get sick, healthcare professionals ask, "What's the matter with you?" But around the world, teams of doctors, nurses, therapists, and social workers have started to flip the script, asking, "What matters to you?" Instead of solely pharmaceutical prescriptions, they offer social prescriptions, referrals to community activities and resources like photography classes, gardening groups, and volunteering gigs. The results speak for themselves. Science shows us that social prescribing is effective for treating symptoms of the modern world's most common ailments: depression, ADHD, addiction, trauma, anxiety, chronic pain, dementia, diabetes, and loneliness. As healthcare's de facto cycle of diagnose, treat, repeat reaches a breaking point, social prescribing has also proven to reduce patient wait times, lower hospitalization rates, save money, and reverse health worker burnout. As a general sense of unwellness plagues more of us, social prescriptions can help us feel healthier than we've felt in years. That's all I'm going to read from the back. There is a little bit more, and you can read it on the blog post that goes with this episode, or you can read it on the back of the book or in Amazon or wherever you shop for books. And like the description said, one thing I loved about this book is that it really does flip that script. Instead of asking, "What's the matter with you?" they ask, "What matters to you?" And then you go pursue that thing. There are 3 parts in the book, and the first part is largely stories about different people pursuing things that matter to them. And the thing is, they might not have known that it mattered to them beforehand. A lot of the people were actually prescribed. This is mostly in Europe. They were mostly prescribed these groups, and it's a new thing in Europe. The doctors or nurses or social workers had actual prescriptions, and they would say, okay, go to this group. And the group is usually involved in nature, but not always. It's a community, and they're all supportive of each other. One thing I loved about a lot of the groups when they were talking about it is it's not a group about the illness. They're not focusing on what's wrong. They're focusing on something else. They're focusing on coming together and doing an activity, whether it's going out in nature. The stories about being afraid of bears was kind of fun. So going out in nature or fishing, which again is nature. There was another one that went swimming in the cold ocean. There were so many different types of activities, and they all had this togetherness about them. I loved it. This is such a good book. Okay, a little bit about a social prescription from the book. It says, a social prescription is officially defined as a non-medical resource or activity that aims to improve a person's health and strengthen their community connections. Because, again, from the book, it says, to survive, we need basic resources, the things we think about when you hear environment. clean air, trees, nutritious food, shelter, and money. And to thrive, we need sources of joy, meaning, and relationships in our environments too. Reasons to wake up in the morning, things that make us feel healthy, connections to what matters to us. And I think that's the biggest premise of the book. And not everybody knew what connections mattered to them. And some of the parts of this book were exploring what does matter to you. So like I said, there are 3 parts in this book. Part 1 is about the science, and it has a lot of stories. It shows that movement, nature, art, things like that, there's scientific validation for how it helps people in their health and in their diagnoses. It really works. Part 2 is more of I would say like systems behind it, how they make it work. There's 30 different countries that the author toured in writing this book and in figuring out, what goes into a social prescription. And in part 2, she also talks about, the wait times and the healthcare environment, and talks about how social prescribing can help with that too. And then part 3 is really, let's put this in action. Let's help you figure out how this works for you. How can you prescribe, not technically prescribe, but how can you prescribe this for yourself? So a quote from the book from part 3, the author says, "I prescribe myself movement, nature, art, service, and belonging when I find myself feeling the symptoms that resemble theirs." And by theirs, she's talking about the people in part 1, feeling stuck, distracted, worried, grumpy, and lonely. And then, spoiler alert, I surprised myself. I realized I'd been wrong about health all along. It's impossible for me to keep a cool journalistic distance from this topic and investigate it the same way I might investigate corporate tax fraud. I realize that all of us are at risk of feeling unwell in our ever disconnected environments. And I realize too that all of us can stand to feel better when we reconnect what matters to us. This book is not anti-medical. It's not anti-pharmaceutical. Instead, this book is opening you up to a whole nother world of things that you can do for your health, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your spiritual health. Although she didn't really talk about spiritual health. It's mostly mental and physical. This book is about what else you can do. So let me give you one example from the book. And this is in a chapter talking about movement. Everybody knows that we sit too much. We're sedentary too much. We know that we should go outside and we should be active, right? But what happens when the doctor gives you a prescription to help you do that? Well, a doctor gave a patient, specifically Frank in this book, a prescription for a cycling club. Now, he was an adult, and I can't remember if it was Frank or somebody else in the cycling club. They wanted to learn, but as an adult, they hadn't ridden a bike in decades, and they didn't even remember all of the right rules. Well, this cycling club is designed for people like that. And they started out with a refresher course on safety and helping you just get the basics back down. But I loved what the book said about movement and this social prescription. It says, patients didn't need doctors to tell them to move. They needed everything else, a sense of joy while moving instead of an obligation to be, quote, fit. A way to freely access places to move instead of an expensive membership, a personal motivation to get moving instead of an aesthetic one, and perhaps most important, people to hold them accountable. And that's what they found in this particular chapter in this cycling group. They found people, and even when they were done with the prescription, a lot of the people in that cycling group stayed together and formed their own group, their own accountability group, and they're having fun, but they're taking care of each other too. I remember one story about that cycling group, and one of the ladies, I think, she had something physical so that she was slower, and they all cared for her, and she was the comedian of the group. It was a group of friends at the end of the social prescription. They stayed together, and they were all increasing their physical and mental well-being because of this group, because of this social prescription. There's a lot of different types of prescriptions and social groups in this book. I highly recommend checking it out. Like I said, there's nature, there's art, there's even a chapter about the farms in Northern Europe where they provide work for people with dementia, the lifestyle work where they'll go and they'll collect eggs or feed the cows or clean out the stalls. This sense of purpose, it does so much for that community of people with dementia. There's so many great stories in part 1. And like I said, part 3 is all about how to apply this to your life. So the Connection Cure is out this coming week. You can pre-order it today if you are listening when this episode airs on a Saturday, June 8th. The book itself comes out on June 11th. It is going to be such an encouraging and uplifting book for you. Just the stories themselves are fun to read. All of part 1, just stories about people finding better health, physical and mental health through social prescriptions. And then part 2 is about lots of stuff around the world and making it work. And then part 3 is all applying it to your life. I highly recommend this book. It is 5 stars from me. Go out and get it, and then come over to the Health with Hashimoto's community in the app and let's talk about it. What are you doing to not quite prescribe, but kind of like prescribe a social cure or a connection cure for yourself? And again, of course, the FDA, the FTC, all of their government agencies, they don't like the word cure. But since that's in the title of this book, The Connection Cure, I'm going to use it here. Are you going to cure your Hashimoto's by connecting with others? No. Are you going to make an impact in your physical and mental health? Probably. And I would love to hear your results. Go out, get the book, read it, and then pop over to the Health with Hashimoto's community and let's talk about it. Thank you for listening to this bonus episode of the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. If you know of somebody else who would maybe enjoy this book, will you share it with them? You can share the episode, or you can take a screenshot and you can share it to your stories and tag myself. On Instagram, I am health.with.Hashimoto's, and you can also tag your friend who might enjoy this book. I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.